it starts to make sense why I have sometimes found myself thinking, oh, why did I do that? We end up feeling a little silly for reacting and potentially causing a scene. This is a net positive for everyone. Luckily, I noticed that this was causing arguments with my wife and I decided to change it. I have actually been working on this for a number of years now. There is only really one thing I've come up with that helps to get the best result every time. Have you ever reacted to something someone has said or done and later thought, I wish I had not acted in that way? I certainly have, and let me tell you, it is not a pleasant feeling. Sometimes we get angry, frustrated, and just overwhelmed and decide to say or act in a way that could almost feel a little out of character. We might end up snapping back, raising our voice for seemingly no reason, or even end up insulting someone we care about. Whatever it may be, we react first and think about it later. When later comes, you may be in the middle of an argument and end up blaming the other person for the current situation, which will only make it worse. You may even feel like you have nowhere to turn and end up asking AI how to deal with the situation. In my last video, we talked about the usage of AI for things like this and how it may affect us. If you haven't seen it yet, please check it out. My name is Bobby, and this is Real People, Real Talk. Let me start off by saying I'm not an expert. Just somebody trying to be a better version of myself with the hope to inspire others in the real world to also find more personal growth by sharing my thoughts, opinions, and things that I have learned. Let's get back into our reactions. As with most things, we can go back in history and get some understanding from evolution. Our brains have been wired to identify threats and react quickly. Incredibly quickly, actually. We are talking around 250 milliseconds on average. This number varies depending on the person, of course, and some other factors that come into play, such as age, fitness levels, health, amount of focus, how much training you have done, and also the type of stimulus you are reacting to. A visual stimulus is normally faster than when you are reacting to sound or touch. With that in mind, it starts to make sense why I have sometimes found myself thinking, oh, why did I do that? When we are triggered to react quickly, it's our primitive brain that takes over. It sees a new age threat and goes straight into survival mode, using an emotional response before the rational part of our brain has a chance to come in and make better decisions. We could say that the speed of our reactions are wired into us from hundreds and thousands of years ago. However, that does not mean that we cannot put a little work in to get better at this for the sake of our relationships, the level of peace that we attain, and of course, the fact that we are trying to be a little bit better every single day. I have actually been working on this for a number of years now. I feel that I'm becoming better and better as time goes by, but I definitely still have work to do. One thing I know is that when my primitive brain comes into play and reacts quickly, there hasn't been too many instances where good has come from it. Of course, there is the times where your body feels pain, such as touching a hot object. In those situations, I don't even believe that the brain becomes part of the process. These are just reflexes where your body responds straight away. However, when it comes to everyday emotions, thoughts and actions, I do believe that it's more beneficial for the primitive brain to not be the driving force. But why should we change this? There must be a reason why our brain is pushing us in that direction. Well, that's right. Our brain is pushing us in that direction because of years of hardwiring. The difference is that most threats nowadays are no longer fatal. In this day and age, it's things like discomfort, fear, or conflict that your brain is trying to get you to escape from. A lot of the times, we are dealing with people that we love and care about. Therefore, the emotional responses can be damaging to those relationships. Let's have a look at some examples of how this may be affecting us and also get into the things we can change to be better and avoid making potential bad decisions. There will be various different stimuli that we could react to in our daily lives. One common one is what we hear about ourselves. I'm talking about the times where we may hear someone saying something about us and we feel like we need to go over there and defend our honor. There may be a scenario in the workplace where some of your colleagues are talking about how you were delayed in delivering a project. And when we hear this, our initial response is to storm over there and offload all of the reasons why this was the case to uphold our reputation. It may be some of your friends talking about the way you have dressed today. we hear this and feel like we need to rush over there, let them know we heard them, and maybe even give our own not so kind thoughts about their choice of clothing. It could also be that you are starting to hear some whisperings about some people in your community saying that they don't get a good feeling from you, and you feel the need to put everyone right by either taking to social media or any other form of communication where we can reach everyone at the same time. Whatever the example may be, we hear something that acts as a stimulus and immediately react with our primitive brain to try and put it right. In my experience, what follows is most likely not so favorable for us. Another common stimulus that we react to in our lives is something that we have seen. It may be you witnessing another child shouting at your son or daughter as you enter the school to pick them up. Immediately, we want to intervene and stop this from happening, only to realize after that our child actually pushed the other first. We may even see our neighbor out of the window as he puts some rubbish into the bin that belongs to us, get a little heated and ask what the heck they think they're doing, only for him to respond and say, "That rubbish actually came out of my bin, and he was just returning it." In these instances, we end up feeling a little silly for reacting and potentially causing a scene without actually having all of the information at hand. Nowadays, the same would go for things that you see on email, social media posts, or messages. We look at our phones, we see something that we perceive to be unfair, and want to react straight away. We want to respond to the threat before it's too late. Sadly, we may end up saying things in this digital format that does not accurately reflect who we are. The last stimulus I thought of that was most common is how someone or something has made us feel. A good example is being at the traffic light and not driving off as soon as the light turns green. The person behind you punches their car horn, which makes us feel angry and frustrated. After all, we did not miss the green light intentionally, so we throw a hand gesture out the window. Now, everyone's annoyed and it may even escalate. Another great example is interaction with family or your partner. The kitchen bin is full, and no one has emptied it. We come home and feel like it has been left for us. We want to call everyone lazy and irresponsible. Most likely, this will end up in arguments and a real negative atmosphere in the house. What if your partner hadn't asked you about how your day was, despite the fact you had a bad one? Well, that's inconsiderate enough for us to react with snappy remarks that will showcase our unhappiness. No, that's not true actually. I haven't asked her about her day either, thinking about it now. These are just some examples I could think of from what I've heard, seen and experienced myself. I'm hoping that as you watch this video, you are thinking of some of your own examples of when you reacted to a stimulus quickly and automatically. As always, I'm very keen to hear some of them. Please leave me a comment. I look forward to reading them. Okay, what's the situation here? Something happens, we feel a certain way, and we react within milliseconds. Sometimes our reactions aren't very good, but surely that's okay. We were driven towards that, right? No. We allowed the primitive part of the brain to take over. We aren't really thinking straight, and we are in fight or flight. And our decision is to choose violence, emotional violence. The point of this video is to see whether we can work towards reducing the times where we just enter the battle without having negotiations first. Let's break it down. Take it from me. I know it's not nice to hear someone say something about us that is unfair. It might not even be true. I understand the urge to put everyone right immediately, but most likely we haven't thought it through. We are just going to confront someone who wasn't ready for it. It may end up in an argument or more detrimental to us overall. If I said John is always late when we get together, that creates an image for John as a late guy. Add to the fact that others in the group agree and talk about it too. Sooner or later, he will hear about it. When he does, he will feel like it's almost become his brand that he's always late to things. At this point, he may decide that he needs to say something to ensure he can change that brand. Truth is, whatever John says is not going to change the fact that we all think he is always late. I honestly think that with these kind of examples where people are saying something about us, we just need to sit back and take it in. Decide whether there is any value in the words and respond with actions. Take John for instance. If he is always a late guy, but then he is on time or early for the next 2 gatherings, he changes the narrative completely. Yes, there will be some jokes about the fact that it's out of character, but soon, the brand of being late will be in the past. John has listened to what happened, not reacted with excuses and his own thoughts on how others are late causing potential tension, but instead he just decided to change it and move on. Let's look at this for what we see. It's pretty similar to what we've already talked about. We see something, we react, and have to deal with the consequences later. It's hard a lot of the times. When we see something we don't like or don't agree with, of course, there'll be a natural urge to get involved and change it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but unfortunately, a lot of the time, this involvement happens as an immediate reaction to what we have seen, and so we haven't allowed for any thoughts to circulate in our minds to help regulate the primitive brain. I went through a stage in my life where I completely lost my head whenever I saw my kids getting hurt. Something would happen with them just being kids, and I would react negatively towards my wife to try and establish how it happened. It wasn't a good reaction. I wasn't in a good place when I saw them in pain. But I never allowed myself to let the information settle before reacting. Luckily, I noticed that this was causing arguments with my wife, and I decided to change it. Everyone knew I cared. It just didn't need the intensity that I was bringing to the event. Lastly, let's talk about how something or someone has made us feel. Here also, it's not too dissimilar to what we mentioned before. Whatever it is that has made me feel a certain way, giving in to my initial reaction will most likely only cause problems. We experience people's actions and words, and it may make us feel something. When we feel it, the first thing that comes up is a reaction to that feeling. A lot of the times, that reaction is then translated into our own words and actions. This happens quite often when it's something we really care about. There may be an instance where we are working hard to lose some of the extra pounds we have gained during a holiday. If one of our friends makes any reference to weight gain, this could make us feel self-conscious and frustrated. During that exchange, we could get angry, lash out, and even say something nasty back in response. It will certainly be something that we will regret saying or doing later on. We can't control how others around us act or what they say. Most likely, they didn't actually mean to be nasty and had good intentions. When we don't react and respond rationally, it will make them look inward to think about whether or not they said or did the right thing. That is a much better outcome than a fight. Sometimes you do have people trying to provoke you. We have to remember that those people are actually trying to make you feel something so that they can get a reaction. When we're able to not give this to them, they will again reconsider their approaches going forward. We should really work towards being the person that influences a change in behavior by being the best version of ourselves. Look, I'll be honest, this is a tough behavioral shift, and it isn't something I'm able to do every time, but it's certainly something I want to continue working on because the benefits massively outweigh the work that is required. How do we address it, you ask? Great question, my friends. In order to be better at the reactions we have to various life stimuli, there is only really one thing I've come up with that helps to get the best result every time. The objective is to increase the time between stimuli and reaction. And the way that we do that is by training our brain to pause once something happens. We just need a few moments to let things sink in, let the primitive brain calm down a little to make rational choices and then decide to act, if action is necessary. We do this very well already in some scenarios, generally the ones where you're open to scrutiny. For instance, at work, if someone says that project took you ages to do, you're most likely not going to turn around to that colleague and say, "Well, I didn't see you lift a finger." Even if that information is true, you would handle that situation differently and choose better words to articulate the challenges that you faced while completing the project. In that scenario, in order to uphold your work reputation and brand, you have taught your brain to pause before reaction. We can do the same for everyday scenarios. That means less raising your voice or potentially losing your head with your kids when they did something unfavorable, less provocative responses to your spouse when things are heated, less potentially hurtful actions when you lose patience with your parents. It could be anything. But the pause will ensure better outcomes and less regrettable actions. In real life, it's just to stop and take a moment. Be tolerable and understand that whatever is happening is going to be dealt with either way. The threats we face today are mostly never fatal. We don't have to defend ourselves as if our life depends on it. I also like this idea of looking at people's words and actions with a lens of the most generous interpretation. This is a concept that Dr. Becky Kennedy uses for parenting, but I think it works for any human interaction. Let's look at everything that happens with what is the most generous interpretation for their actions. A lot of the times, people are dealing with something in the background themselves that they haven't been able to get to a point where they don't let those feelings come out in interactions with you. Our pauses will help them reflect and change too. This is a net positive for everyone. I would love to hear your thoughts on this subject, whether you've had instances where you have reacted quickly to something and maybe you shouldn't have, or where you have seen people do it and didn't think that it needed the level of intensity that came with it. Please leave me a comment. I look forward to reading them. My name is Bobby, and this is Real People Raw Talk. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.